Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Suprajna channel and to another reading of Sophie's World. Uh, we are currently reading about Aristotle's views on the world, and we have discussed about ethics and politics last time. And now we are going to be talking about Aristotle's views on women, which I haven't read it yet myself. So it's going to be quite
Wonderful
interesting.
subject.
I know it's going to be an interesting subject. I think SKR might join us, but I don't know if we should
Mhm.
wait. Maybe she should read it and then we should have the conversation. I don't know.
Mm.
But
Okay, she will join. You can start and then
we can start and
she
then we
can
can
continue
read
whatever
the
she
reading and
feels.
we can.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem, sir.
exactly.
All right. So let's see. So we talked about politics, we talked about ethics, and now let's talk about Aristotle's views on women. Finally, let us look at Aristotle's views on women. His was unfortunately not uplifting as Plato's, the view basically. Aristotle was more inclined to believe that women were incomplete in some way. A woman was an unfinished man. That's what Aristotle thought. In reproduction, woman is passive and receptive, whilst man is active and productive. For the child inherits only the mere characteristics, claimed Aristotle. He believed that all the child's characteristics lay complete in the male sperm. The woman was soil, receiving and bringing forth the seed, whilst the man was the sower. Or in Aristotelian language, the man provides the form and the woman contributes the substance. It is, of course, both
Super.
astonishing and yeah, I think it's the
Yes,
exact
clear
opposite.
obsession.
Okay,
Hello, it's clear.
SK Garu, welcome to the panel. So, do you want to read Aristotle's views on women?
Sure, Andy.
Yeah, because we
Hello.
just started, so maybe it's worth repeating as well.
Oh, okay. Page number 68 kada? Okay.
Page number 68 in the PDF.
Okay. Views on women. Finally, let us look at Aristotle's view on women. It was unfortunately not as uplifting as Plato's. Aristotle was more inclined to believe that women were incomplete in some way. A woman was an unfinished man. In reproduction, women is passive and receptive, whilst man is active and productive. While the child inherits only the male characteristics, claimed Aristotle. He believed that all the child's characteristics lay complete in the male sperm. The woman was the soil, receiving and bringing forth the seed, while the man was the saver. Or, in Aristotelian language, the man provides the form and the woman contributes the substance. It is, of course, both astonishing and highly regrettable that an otherwise so intelligent man could be so wrong about the relationship of the sexes. But it demonstrates two things. First, that Aristotle could not have had much practical experience regarding the lives of women and children. And second, it shows how wrong things can go when men are allowed to reign supreme in the fields of philosophy and science. Aristotle's erroneous view of the sexes was doubly harmful because it was his, rather than Plato's view, that held sway throughout the Middle Ages. The church thus inherited a view of women that is entirely without foundation in the Bible. Jesus was certainly no women hater. I'll say no more, but you'll be hearing from me again. When Sophie had read the chapter on Aristotle 1.5 times, she returned it to the brown envelope and remained sitting, staring into space. She suddenly became aware of the mess surrounding her. Books and ring binders lay scattered on the floor. Socks and sweaters, tights and jeans hung half out of the closet. On the chair in front of the writing desk was a huge pile of dirty laundry. Sophie had an irresistible desire to clear up. The first thing she did was to pull all the clothes out of the closet and onto the floor. It was necessary to start all over. Then she began folding her things very neatly and stacking them all tidily on the shelves. The closet had 7 shelves. One was for underwear, one for socks and tights, and one for jeans. She gradually filled up each shelf. She never had any question about where to put anything. dirty laundry went into a plastic bag she found on the bottom shelf. One thing she did have trouble with: a white knee length stocking. The problem was that the other one of the pair was missing. What's more, it had never been Sophie's. She examined it carefully. There was nothing to identify the owner, but Sophie had a strong suspicion about who the owner was. She threw it up onto the top shelf to join the Lego, the video cassette, and the red silk scarf. Sophie turned her attention to the floor. She sorted books, ring binders, magazines, and posters exactly as the philosophy teacher had described in the chapter on Aristotle. When she had done that, she made her bed and got started on her writing desk. The last thing she did was to gather all the pages on Aristotle into a neat pile. She fished out an empty ring binder and a hole punch, made holes in the pages, and clicked them into the ring binder. This also went onto the top shelf. Later on in the day, she would have to bring in the cookie tin from the den. From now on, things would be kept neat. And she didn't only mean in her room. After reading Aristotle, she realized it was just as important to keep her ideas orderly. She had reserved the top shelf of the closet especially for that kind of thing. It was the only place in the room that she did not yet have complete control over. There had been no sign of life from her mother for over 2 hours. Sophie went downstairs. Before she woke her mother up, she decided to feed her pets. She bent over the goldfish bowl in the kitchen. One of the fishes was black, one orange, and one red and white. This was why she called them Blackjack, Gold Top, and Red Riding Hood. As she sprinkled fish food into the water, she said, "You belong to nature's living creatures. You can absorb nourishment, you can grow and reproduce yourselves. More specifically, you belong to the animal kingdom. So you can move around and look out at the world. To be precise, you're fish, and you breathe through your gills and can swim back and forth in the waters of life." Wow. Sophie put the lid back on the fish food jar. She was quite satisfied with the way she had placed the goldfish in nature's scale, and she was especially pleased with the expression, "the waters of life." So now it was the budgerigars' turn. Sophie poured a little bird seed in their feeding cup and said, "Dear Smith and Smool, you have become dear little budgerigars because you grew out of dear little budgerigar eggs. And because these eggs had the form of being budgerigars, luckily you didn't grow into squawking parrots." Sophie then went into the large bathroom where the sluggish tortoise lay in a big box. Every now and then, when her mother showered, she yelled that she would kill it one day. But so far, it had been an empty threat. Sophie took a lettuce leaf from a large jam jar and laid it in the box. "Dear Govinda," she said, "you're not one of the speediest animals, but you certainly are able to sense a tiny fraction of the great big world we live in. You will have to content yourself with the fact that you're not the only one who can't exceed our your own limits." Sherekan was probably out catching mice. That was a cat's nature after all. Sophie crossed the living room toward her mother's bedroom. A vase of daffodils stood on the coffee table. It was as if the yellow blooms bowed respectfully as Sophie went by. She stopped for a moment and let her fingers gently brush their smooth heads. "You belong to the living part of nature too," she said. "Actually, you're quite privileged compared to the ways you're in. But unfortunately, you're not able to appreciate it." Then Sophie tiptoed into her mother's bedroom. Although her mother was in a deep sleep, Sophie laid a hand on her forehead. "You're one of the luckiest ones," she said, "because you're not only alive like the lilies of the field, And you're not only a living creature like Sherekan or Govinda, you're a human and therefore have the rare capacity of thought. What on earth are you talking about, Sophie? Her mother had woken up more quickly than usual. I was just saying that you look like a lazy tortoise. I can otherwise inform you that I have tidied up my room with philosophic thoroughness. Her mother lifted her head. I'll be right there, she said. Will you put the coffee on? Sophie did as she was asked, and they were soon sitting in the kitchen over coffee, juice, and chocolate. Suddenly, Sophie said, Have you ever wondered why we are alive, Mom? Mom is like, Oh, not again. Yes, because now I know the answer. People live on this planet so that someone can go around giving names to everything. Oh, is that right? I never thought of that. Then you have a big problem because a human is a thinking animal. If you don't think, you're not really a human. Sophie. Okay. Imagine if there were only vegetables and animals. Then there wouldn't have been anybody to tell the difference between cat and dog or lily and gooseberry. Vegetables and animals are living too, but we are the only creatures that can categorize nature into different groups and classes. Mom is like, You really are the most peculiar girl I have ever had, said her mother. I should hope so, said Sophie. Everybody everybody is more or less peculiar. I am a person, so I am more or less peculiar. You have only one girl, so I'm the most peculiar. What I meant was that you scare the living daylights out of me with all that new talk. You're easily scared then. Later that afternoon, Sophie went back to the den. She managed to smuggle the big cookie tin up to her room without her mother noticing. First, she put all the pages in the right order, then, she punched holes in them and put them in the ring binder before the chapter on Aristotle. Finally, she numbered each page in the top right hand corner. There were in all over 50 pages. Sophie was in the process of compiling her own book on philosophy. It was not by her, but written especially for her. She had no time to do her homework for Monday. They were probably going to have a test in religious knowledge, but the teacher always said he valued personal commitment and valued judgments. Sophie felt she was beginning to have a certain basis for both. The- So, with this ends views on women.
Women, wonderful అండి. చాలా it's outstandingly written actually.
Yeah.
And you can tell, look what's happening to the child
Hmm.
basically. She's being taught philosophy, but in what is the actions that she's doing? She's organizing her room actually.
Hmm.
How insightful, right? So a lot of times for kids, you don't tell them what to do. You actually give them something that will get them to think in a way that eventually you will get the outcome that you expect, basically.
She's 13-year-old, right?
Yeah, 13, 14, whatever.
Is it not too early for a kid to think this big? Like, I don't know.
See, that's the thing. She's
I would
not
be
thinking
scared.
big. She's not thinking big. She's being introduced to some very interesting topics. Her thoughts are still very unformulated, right? But nevertheless, she is drawing conclusions that are very useful for her, actually, right? Who asked her to organize her room?
Correct. But
Nobody.
with
Nobody.
all this talk, right, in her class or in a group of friends, she'll become the odd one.
I mean, I don't think. I think she's able to compartmentalize,
Hmm.
right? So it's almost as if she's getting this lesson separately at
Correct.
home or wherever. It's not being taught in school,
Yeah.
right? But now you are leaving it up to her to build the bridge between the two. So you are opening up another avenue of learning for her, right? And it is helping because she's looking at Aristotle saying, well, you need to organize what's around you in your head first. And she said, well, let's start with my organizing my room. And she's also thinking about, okay, now I need to make sure that my ideas are also very structured, right? I'll tell you what's good about being structured. It will slow you down. There's no two ways about it. But at the same time, when you get lost, when something gets lost, or when you don't know where to place an idea, is when the structure will help you, basically.
Hmm.
And that is one of the key, the due diligence that you do to structure things will eventually help you when things go haywire, basically. That's the value of order and structure. All right. Davji is here. Hello, Davji. How are you doing? Welcome to the
Hello,
panel.
Vishwagaru.
How are you?
Hello. I'm very fine. संडे है तो मजे हैं.
Yeah. So your Viva is also over presentation, etc. So you must be pretty happy. All right, let's go to the next chapter. It's even more interesting.
Adjust your mic, Vishwagaru.
Is it too low?
It's fluctuating, low, high, some disturbance sometimes.
We need some
Okay.
order.
Also, what is the time gap between Aristotle and Plato? Again, I forgot. Approx. How many years?
Okay. Let me tell you. I'll have to Google it.
Yeah, because the whole thing about women, like around that age, and the whole Bible, it's all based off of Aristotle's point of view, is what we just read, right?
Yeah.
So did the Bible come into picture between Aristotle and Plato, or
No.
is it that way?
No
Just because people
Bible.
felt comfortable with this point of view, they went by it.
It was more influential at that point of time in history, right? So this is all BCE we are talking about. BCE, before Common Era. So yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Yeah. So the time period, na? Bible's time period is like 1500 BC,
That's
and
the Old
these
Testament.
Plato, yeah, Old Testament, yes, and the
Yeah, and
Plato and Aristotle time period was 430 or 350 something. In between that,
see,
450 or yeah,
Dawji, technically there
yeah,
was no Bible in 1500 BC. There was only the Torah, basically.
yeah. So we know the like outline, na?
Yeah. But when you say Bible, I mean, to be very strict, there is no Bible in 15 in the time that Aristotle and Plato were around, basically.
Hmm. But that forget his name, right? Like David and Solomon, something. What was
Yeah. That is all Jewish
that called?
history, and
Yeah.
they
So
used to,
that was around
whatever you
1000 BCE, na?
correct. So I mean,
Hmm.
Moses, the time of Moses and all that, right? It goes back even further, probably. But
Okay.
net is the mention of Jesus and all that Bible and all that is here. It was not there when these guys were around. It was
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is 350. So the gap was
Yeah.
about
Then
40 years. Yeah.
New
Good.
Testament was around 100 CE, na? 50, 100,
Correct.
50 to 100 CE. New Testament, yes.
Correct. Exactly. You got it. Correct.
But by then, Plato's different point of view of women also came, but still, um, the Aristotle's view was taken forward.
Yeah. Aristotle's view was taken because it was convenient, right?
Convenient, yeah, and they liked
I
it.
mean, they didn't know any better, basically. In
No, but
fact, I'll
Plato
let me
must
tell
have.
you something. Even till today, it is there in many societies.
Hmm.
Forget about the Renaissance and all that European this thing. Even today, there are many conservative societies where the Aristotle's view of whatever we just now read exists. Sikshardhan garu, welcome to the panel.
Hello, sir.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hello,
So, SK
Davji.
garu, it is
What are
very
you doing?
important to understand this, right? What shapes the Western ideology of women, right? pay attention to the foundations. You will
Correct.
find,
I think we read, I mean, we just had a rerun of an old session that we did on ladies and Bible, kind of, right? So even
hmm,
there they mention God, then comes church, then comes man, and then women, and that too with their head and everything covered. You remember that session, Vishwa Garu?
yeah, yeah, I remember. So basically, women have been created for the companionship of men, not as individual entities. That is one of the key takeaways.
Mm,
Okay. So, and if you look at the even ancient history, even the Jewish the scripture, right? We call it Talmud Torah, whatever you want to call it. The entire, even that is obviously, we know that some people claim that that is copied from some other Sumerian accounts of all this deluge and Noah's Ark and all that kind of stuff, right? But the Adam and Eve story, if you go back, the chronology is very clear, and the reasoning and everything. So now a lot of people in the Western Hemisphere may not subscribe to it today in this day and age, but at the same time, it's not 100%. There are many conservative societies or societies, let's call it. There are many societies and people that still subscribe to that thought process. Okay, we are not here to judge anybody. You know, uh, we are here to understand where the tendencies come from and what the foundational elements of it are, basically. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Or I mean, there's more coming, right? The next chapter is Hellenism.
Hellenism.
So yeah, so let's get into that, and then maybe we'll get more insights into the entire picture there.
Okay. Okay. Hellenism, a spark from the fire. Although the philosophy teacher had begun sending his letters directly to the old hedge, Sophie nevertheless looked in the mailbox on Monday morning more out of habit than anything else. It was empty, not surprisingly. She began to walk down Clover Close. Suddenly, she noticed a photograph lying on the sidewalk. It was a picture of a white jeep and a blue flag with the letters UN on it. Wasn't that the United Nations flag? Sophie turned the picture over and saw that it was a regular postcard to Hilda Moller Nag, care of Sophie Amundsen. It had a Norwegian stamp and was postmarked UN Battalion, Friday, June 15th, 1990. June 15th? That was Sophie's birthday. The card read, Dear Hilda, I assume you're still celebrating your 15th birthday. Or is this the morning after? Anyway, it makes no difference to your present. In a sense, that will last a lifetime. But I would like to wish you a happy birthday one more time. Perhaps you understand now why I send the cards to Sophie. I'm sure she will pass them on to you. P.S. Mom said you had lost your wallet. I hereby promise to reimburse you the 150 crowns. You'll probably be able to get another school ID before they close for the summer vacation. Love from Dad. Sophie stood glued to the spot. When was the previous card postmarked? She seemed to recall that the postcard of the beach was also postmarked June, even though it was a whole month off. She simply hadn't looked properly. She glanced at her watch and then ran back to the house. She would just have to be late for school today. Sophie let herself in and leaped upstairs to her room. She found the first postcard to Hilda under the red silk scarf. Yes, it was also postmarked June 15th, Sophie's birthday and the day before the summer vacation. Her mind was racing as she ran over to the supermarket to meet Joanna. Who was Hilda? How could her father as could as take it for granted that Sophie would find her? In any case, it was senseless of him to send Sophie the cards instead of sending them directly to his daughter. It could not possibly be because he didn't know his own daughter's address. Was it a practical joke? Was he trying to surprise his daughter on her birthday by getting a perfect stranger to play detective and mailman? Was that why she was being given a month's head start and was using her as the go between, a way of giving his daughter a new girlfriend as a birthday present? Could she be the present that would last a lifetime? If this joker really was in Lebanon, how had he gotten hold of Sophie's address? Also, Sophie and Hilda had at least two things in common. If Hilda's birthday was June 15th, they were both born on the same day. And they both had fathers who were on the other side of the globe. Sophie felt she was being drawn into an unnatural world. Maybe it was not so dumb after all to believe in fate. Still, she shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. It could all have a perfectly natural explanation. But how had Alberto Knox found Hilda's wallet when Hilda lived in Lil Sand? Lil Sand was hundreds of miles away. And why had Sophie found this postcard on her sidewalk? Did it fall out of the mailman's bag just as he got to Sophie's mailbox? If so, why should he drop this particular card? Are you completely insane? Joanna burst out when Sophie finally made it to the supermarket. Sorry. Joanna frowned at her severely like a school teacher. You would better have a good explanation. It has to do with the UN, said Sophie. I was detained by hostile troops in Lebanon. Sure, you're just in love. They ran to school as fast as their legs could carry them. The religious knowledge test that Sophie had not had time to prepare for was given out in the third period. The sheet read, oh, the test, okay. Philosophy of life and tolerance. Okay, it has, say, 4 points. First point, make a list of things we can know. Then make a list of things we can only believe. Second one, indicate some of the factors contributing to a person's philosophy of life. Third, what is meant by conscience? Do you think conscience is the same for everyone? Fourth, what is meant by priority of values? Okay, so Sophie sat thinking for a long time before she started to write. Could she use any of the ideas she had learned from Alberto Knox? She was going to have to, because she had not opened her religious knowledge book for days. Once she began to write, the words simply flowed from her pen. She wrote that we know the moon is not made of green cheese, and that there are also craters on the dark side of the moon, that both Socrates and Jesus were sentenced to death, that everybody has to die sooner or later, that the great temples on the Acropolis were built after the Persian wars in the 15th century BC, and the
Fifth,
most
fifth, fifth century.
sorry, right, that the great temples on the Acropolis were built after the Persian wars in the 5th century BC, and that the most important oracle in ancient Greece was the oracle at Delphi. As examples of what we can only believe, Sophie mentioned the questions of whether or not there is life on other planets, whether God exists or not, whether there is life after death, and whether Jesus was the Son of God or merely a wise man. Hmm. We can certainly not know where the world came from, she wrote, completing her list. Adi. Universe can be compared to a large rabbit pulled out of a top hat. Philosophers tried to climb up one of the fine hairs of the rabbit's fur and stare straight into the eyes of the great magician. Whether they'll ever succeed is an open question. But if each philosopher climbed into another one's back, they would get even higher up in the rabbit's fur, and then, in my opinion, there would be some chance they would make it someday. P.S. In the Bible, there is something that could have been one of the fine hairs of rabbit's fur. The hair was called the Tower of Babel. and it was destroyed because the magician didn't want
That's Tower of Babel.
Babel.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead, please, please. Sorry.
The hair was called the Tower of Babel, and it was destroyed because the magician didn't want the tiny human insects to crawl up that high out of the white rabbit he had just created. Then there was the next question: indicate some of the factors contributing to a person's philosophy of life. Upbringing and environment were important here. People living at the time of Plato had a different philosophy of life than many people have today because they lived in a different age and a different environment. Another factor was the kind of experience people chose to get themselves. Common sense was not determined by environment. Everybody had that. Maybe one could compare environment and social situation with the conditions that existed deep down in Plato's cave. By using their intelligence, individuals can start to drag themselves up from the darkness. But a journey like that requires personal courage. Socrates is a good example of a person who managed to free himself from the prevailing views of his time by his own intelligence. Finally, she wrote, nowadays, people of many lands and cultures are being intermingled more and more. Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists may live in the same apartment building, in which case it is more important to accept each other's beliefs than to ask why everyone does not believe the same thing. Not bad, thought Sophie. She certainly felt she had covered some ground with what she had learned from her philosophy teacher, and she could always supplement it with a dash of her own common sense and what she might have read and heard elsewhere. She applied herself to the third question. Question is, what is meant by conscience? Do you think conscience is the same for everyone? Vishwagara, am I pronouncing it correct? Conscience.
Conscience. SHUN. Shuns.
Shans.
Conscience.
Conscience. Okay. Conscience అంటే ఏంటో ఒకసారి చెప్పండి నాకు.
Conscience is the. I mean, we can look at the dictionary definition. I'll read it. That way, at least we'll have one reference, right? An inner feeling or voice viewed as acting as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of one's behavior.
అది కాన్షియన్స్.
Conscience. So when you are acting with conscience means you are listening to an inner voice that is giving you good direction on what is right and what is wrong, right? But if you are acting or conscientious, that's the word. But if you're acting without that, that means you are unconscionable. So there is a whole host of words associated with this, right? Basically, it is pointing to something where if people have a basic internal compass that tells them what is right and what is wrong, they're supposed to have good conscience, in good conscience, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now was the third question. What is meant by conscience? Do you think conscience is the same for everyone? This was something they had discussed a lot in class. Sophie wrote, conscience is people's ability to respond to right and wrong. My personal opinion is that everyone is endowed with this ability. So, in other words, conscience is innate. Socrates would have said the same. But just what conscience dictates can vary a lot from one person to the next. One could say that the sophists had a point here. They thought that right and wrong is something mainly determined by the environment the individual grows up in. Socrates, on the other hand, believed that conscience is the same for everyone. Perhaps both views were right. Even if everybody doesn't feel guilty about showing themselves naked, most people will have a bad conscience if they are really mean to someone. Still, it must be remembered that having a conscience is not the same as using it. Sometimes it looks as if people act quite unscrupulously. Mm-mm.
Correct. That's correct. You got it.
Okay, meaning?
Unscrupulously. With the scruples.
Meaning?
Scrupulousness. Unscrupulously.
Okay, what is scruple?
Same thing,
Oh,
having some set of morals or standards or whatever. But
okay, okay,
unscrupulous means not having it.
okay. Sometimes it looks as if people act quite unscrupulously, but I believe they also have a kind of conscience somewhere deep down. Just as it seems as if some people have no sense at all, but that's only because they are not using it. P.S. Common sense and conscience can both be compared to a muscle. If you don't use a muscle, it gets weaker and weaker. Hmm. Okay, fourth question. Now, there was only one question left. What is meant by priority of values? This was another thing they had discussed a lot lately. For example, it could be of value to drive. For example, it could be of value to drive a car and get quickly from one place to another. But if driving led to deforestation and polluting the natural environment, you were facing a choice of values. After careful consideration, Sophie felt she had come to the conclusion that healthy forests and a pure environment were more valuable than getting to work quickly. She gave several more examples. Finally, she wrote, "Personally, I think philosophy is more important subject than English grammar. It would therefore be a sensible priority of values to have philosophy on the timetable and cut down a bit on English lessons." In the last break, the teacher drew Sophie aside. "I have already read your religion test," he said. "It was near the top of the pile." So she says, "I hope it gave you some food for thought." That was exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. It was, in many ways, very mature, surprisingly so, and self reliant. But had you done your homework, Sophie? Sophie fidgeted a little. "Well, you did say it was important to have a personal point of view." So the teacher is like, "Well, yes, I did, but there are limits." Sophie looked him straight in the eye. She felt she could permit herself this after all she had experienced lately. She felt she could permit herself this after all she had experienced lately. "I have started studying philosophy," she said. "It gives one a good background for personal opinions." Teacher: "But it doesn't make it easy for me to grade your paper. It will either be a D or an A." Sophie: "Because I was either quite right or quite wrong. Is that what you're saying?" "So let's say A," said the teacher. "But next time, do your homework." When Sophie got home from school that afternoon, she flung her school bag on the steps and ran down to the den. A brown envelope lay on the top of the gnarled roots. It was
G
quite
silent. G silent.
gnarled roots. A brown envelope lay on the top of the gnarled roots. It was quite dry around the edges, so it must
ఆర్
have been
రోల్ అవ్వాలండి.
gnarled.
Yeah.
Gnarled.
No
ఆర్
need.
షుడ్
No need.
రోల్.
No need for that.
No, sir. It is mandatory. We are following Manchu Lakshmi dictionary, sir.
Gnarled roots. Okay. A brown envelope lay on the top of the gnarled roots. ఇది బాగుందా? Then it takes 1 year for me
Perfect
to
అండి.
finish this.
Perfect.
No. British one, not American.
Yeah. The American accent will not go very well with this book. Let me
Oh.
put it that way.
Then Hilda becomes
Sorry.
Hilde.
I don't know what it will become, but we'll stick with
How
the
Hilda?
yeah. We'll stick with the
Follow Hilda,
Indianized.
follow Hilda.
Huh. Envelope also becomes envelope.
It's all good. It's envelope.
However, sugar. It would be
Envelope
like
is the
that.
correct pronunciation, not envelope.
Oh no, even in American English?
Yeah, it's O N envelope. That's how you pronounce it.
Entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Envelope. Oh,
Hmm.
wow.
Yeah, anyway, let's get to Sophie's next letter and then we'll figure out whether we want to read the next
No,
chapter or
Sophie
stop.
is more interested in philosophy, but
No, no,
look at me.
how?
I'm worrying more about my English.
No, no, look at how she negotiated with the teacher, right?
Right,
The teacher
exactly.
is shocked about by what this gal is saying,
And
but she could not give her a D, you see, because that's the power of the philosophical thought, you
yeah.
know, it's just shining already. Anyway,
Okay, a brown envelope lay on the top of gnarled roots. It was quite dry around the edges, so it must have been a long time since Hermes had dropped it. She took the envelope with her and let herself in the front door. She fed the animals and then went upstairs to her room. Lying on her bed, she opened Alberto's letter and read Hellenism. So here it starts.
so should we postpone Hellenism to the next session?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Because there's a lot to unpack in this
Why?
chapter. Go ahead, Doji. Yeah. Oh, you want to read
Why?
it?
Why? Why?
Because
Why?
you don't want to discuss
Definitely.
so many things happened to Sophie in this particular session. You know,
Okay, we can discuss
she,
that. But it was like now comes the sweet part and you are missing it. So that was my feeling. But okay, we can discuss these.
so let me see how big this Hellenism chapter is, and then it's not that bad.
It is quite big. It is quite big. It's not like it has around 7 or 8 chapters inside it.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we should. It's a logical place to stop and discuss, and then we'll pick up Hellenism as a separate topic in the
Yeah,
next
because
session.
we'll get
Okay.
time to discuss also in the end, right?
Exactly. But what I want to focus on is how studying philosophy is slowly getting Sophie to organize both the physical space that she's living in as well as her mental,
Her thoughts
the,
also. Yeah.
her thoughts also, right? And I think in this day and age, this is one of the most important things that kids have to learn, you know. And partially, this whole disorganized way of thinking and everything is probably because they're not being introduced philosophy at a very early age, you know, because it has nothing to do with religion or religious studies or anything like that, as proven again in this particular session of reading, right? Because she was able to answer that religion paper without any problems because she has developed a completely different viewpoint, right? And what did the teacher say? The viewpoint is very mature, she said, right?
Mm.
Because think about it, you know, here is a test that she has not prepared for, but she had a very strong viewpoint on every one of the questions, basically. And it was very obvious that she didn't do her homework. That was clear. But at the same time, you cannot disagree with these points of view, basically, you know. And there is no amount of religion that can sway you from a philosophical bent of mind, because religion cannot. How do I put it? It provides certain answers without really telling why those answers are, right? For example, what is it that we can believe and what is it that we can answer, kind of thing, right? So religion is a point of view that eventually gives answers without really telling you how they got there, basically. But if the philosopher is faced with that same question, they'll ask more questions. And all the religion can do to answer those questions is to say belief, basically, right? So it's more of a, how comfortable are you with that answer? That's all. It's very personal, actually. It's got nothing to do with anything else. That is my 2 cents on this session. Now, go ahead, sir. Shardin Garu, Lawyer Garu, and Dauji as well. Go ahead, please, please.
I like the women session more.
Oh, the definition of it?
The definition of it.
Yeah.
ఎందుకంటే it aligns very closely with the Indian philosophy also. In Indian philosophy also, it is said Kshetram and Bijam, the seed and the soil.
Correct.
So it aligns very closely. So it's no different what Socrates has said.
Right. Aristotle basically.
Yeah, the Aristotle. Sorry. Stand
Yeah, no worries.
Aristotle.
No worries, sir. Dawji, please go ahead, sir.
Dawji, you're there, you're not there.
I think he's having internet problem.
I am
Connection.
there, but voice. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just see.
He's going around
Yes.
somewhere in central India.
that's why I tell people I am always in center. No right, no left.
Hmm.
Aristotle's view on women was like women are inferior to men, I guess.
Being in the center is fine, but center of what is this, the crux?
Center
You
of
need to be
center of everything.
Center of whatever you ask, because the right one will also blame, the left one will also blame. So quite good.
Yeah.
But center of everything doesn't mean everything is good.
Right. See,
Yeah, I know that.
the funny part about the Aristotle model is he said something like, okay, there is a field and there is they support all the forms that come from men, etc., etc. But the funny part is between the form and substance, the derogatory term that people typically use, or the pejoratively, if somebody wants to say this guy is all show and no substance, right? That's the current prevailing usage. So if women are all about substance, then it's a positive thing in this day and age, basically, right? But yes, to a certain extent, we understand what Aristotle was trying to say. That while they are the supporting force, they cannot have form by themselves, basically, right? And obviously, the feminists are not going to accept this kind of viewpoint in this day and age. So the feminist viewpoint is women are self-sufficient. That's the thing, right? If we take feminism 2.0, for example, they said we don't need men, right? That was so the first thing is we are equal to men. Second thing is we don't need men. Third thing is what is that? We are better than men or whatever. And the final thing is we are men, or
men.
whatever it is, right? So in a very sort of a frivolous way, somebody has characterized it that way, but there is some truth to it, basically, right? So that is the current now. Do the feminists represent all the women of the world? They don't, basically, right? So it really depends on where you, as a woman, you want to see yourself in this spectrum, right? Both extremes, right? So that's that.
Yeah. In ethics part, when the writer said that Aristotle described man from like it has a soul and plant-like part, animal-like part, rational part. Okay, and the same Aristotle when he talk about women. Okay, so he said he just for imitated men. I forget
Correct.
the book name. But the book name
Correct.
was
Correct. Yeah.
Generation of Animal. Generation of Animal.
Correct. So even today, when
In
we
that
read
book,
that,
so
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. So his view on women was like the female is nothing but a mutilated man,
Correct.
male person. So I was like,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
Undeveloped, he said, right?
Yeah,
He said something
incomplete.
incomplete, unfinished.
In words like deformed male, incomplete male.
Yeah.
So
So
quite.
obviously, we cannot subscribe to that, knowing everything that we know today, basically, right? But that was the prevailing thought
Yeah,
process back in the day. Yeah.
yeah. And the view, no, that women should not rule comes from the Aristotle's thought. Like Aristotle was like, women should not rule. The politics business should be only men. Men
Correct.
are natural ruler. Women are natural subjects.
Got it.
That
Got
was
it.
his view.
Right.
Other than
Correct.
that, ethics part of Aristotle was, I think, was good. Like when he say about courage, na, like you should not be coward or nor reckless. It should be a balance. So he said a good life is a balanced life. That was his view on ethics. The golden mean. Na?
Mm,
He described it as a golden mean. A good life is a balanced life.
got it. All right. Sikshadhan garu,
Hmm.
your thoughts.
Sir, I I don't have much to share today, sir. So,
No worries. It's all good.
yes, sir. I didn't follow,
And
sir.
there is one trivia.
Yes, sir.
At one point of time, this Western so-called doctors at that time, they actually used to tell the female genitalia is the male genitalia which is upside down. If you open the male genitalia, if you cut it one cross section, so if you unfold it, it will be the female genitalia. That is how they used to treat the patients at that
Mm.
time.
Hmm.
మా డాక్టర్ గారు ఉన్నారు కింద, సో ఐ థింక్ డాక్టర్ గారు, ఇఫ్ యు నో ఎనీ మోర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్, ఇట్స్ బెటర్ యూ
Yeah.
టెల్ మీ మీ టెలింగ్.
That's why English language is at times called a concubine. Borrows words and expressions from other languages, internalizes them until they become part of it as it goes forward. Most languages are like that, sir. Most colloquial, because see, the ideas are coming from everywhere, right? So you cannot isolate a population. Only in the Sentinel Island, probably you'll have pure language. Otherwise, in most places, languages are just a mix of various. I'm talking about the languages that are used colloquially, right? Now, when you talk about the pure language, is there any such language? I don't know. The line item you should include before saying we don't need men is we have IVF. Yeah, it is now we are living in extreme times of men, women, all that kind of the idea, the concept, everything, right? Especially things have morphed so much that now I don't even know what is acceptable anymore. Especially in the US with all the politics. Yeah.
US is horrible.
But for that also you need men, na.
You
Well,
need men, yeah, but they do not need directly, right?
see,
Okay.
Dawji,
One
there is the
sample can
concept is
fertilize say about 100 or 1000 female. Yeah?
exactly the concept is very simple. They'll say that we need men
But
only to
but you
produce
need a
certain.
mango seed to make a mango tree. That's all.
Correct.
Raj,
Correct.
you don't need a man. You just need the seed. That's it. That is what they are saying.
Exactly. So the way it is portrayed is
From where that seed will come.
no.
One
From
is
a
enough to
farm.
fertilize if you know one entire country's population, boss.
From a
One
from
man.
yeah, from a it comes from a farm, basically.
So then the line should be you don't need a man in your life, but you do need this sperm.
Exactly.
It should be
So
like that.
the way it works is the women will be the entire society. There'll be some animals who
Hmm.
are raised in a farm, right?
Hmm.
For the seed only. That's it. But they don't participate in anything else.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when you say we don't need men, this is if you unpack it, this is what it comes to, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was seeing recently. I was seeing one thing that there's a guy in Africa that had like 50 wives and like 500 grandkids or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So I mean,
Wonderful.
you don't need
This was
that many
not
men.
uncommon 4 or 5 generations back.
Yeah. So you don't need that many men, frankly.
See, the nature, even in the nature, you will have more female population than the male population. Take any, if I know, any animal in the animal kingdom or anywhere in the fauna where you see, even in any tree, any plant you see, there will be more female flowers and less of male flowers. Why? Oh, Dr. Garu, sir. Hello, Dr. Garu. Dr. Garu, you have to give. I think he's there. Yeah. Is that right? Hello, Dr. Garu.
Hello, sir. English
Uh,
session. Vignesa garu.
నమస్కారం సార్ అందరికీ
English session, sir.
ఓకే గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ గుడ్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ ఎవ్రీవన్ గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్ No, just had a few comments. That comment about genitalia, very ill informed, sir. Not correct. So the other
I don't know. See, this is what I've heard from somewhere in the internet.
Oh,
Long
okay.
back.
Got it. The other thing about a couple of comments about that English language. See, these guys colonized more than half of the world. That's why, the dynasty that doesn't see sunset, right? That's one of the aphorisms in those days. So as they went, they picked up every important thing and internalized it and documented it, and probably with some blessing with Pope, because that is part of discovery, right? See, otherwise, why would that guy go to Africa and then name a waterfalls Victoria? If you ask a native, he would probably come up with a different name, So in the spirit of that, when S.K. Garu was saying entrepreneurship, so these guys have picked up that word from either French or some other language, and then try to retain that pronunciation. Sometimes even that identity is also gone. So my comment was made in that context. See, lastly, I also just one observation and one appeal to the group. So Aristotle, philosophy, blah, blah, blah. You can use any amount of word salad. Oh, there is some disturbance. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. A lot of static. See, my sincere appeal is human thought is not static or stagnant. It is a dynamic evolution over 2 to 3,000 years since Aristotle or whoever that may be, with contribution from seers, thinkers, all experiences, blah, blah, blah. So that's why Sanatana Dharma is one of the dharmic thoughts. It's not a religion. People can say whatever they want. Unlike some of the other fossilized one book related, either you can call it a cult or a club or an exclusive bonanza or a religion. The real meaning of religion is so vast and deep. Unfortunately, those book-related Abrahamic faiths fall short of even meeting the definition of religion, sir. So when you're keeping your discussions, it is probably better not to give them so much credit. I have to say that, although that is not my intent to say that. So it is coming out like that, but human thought and evolution needs to be considered. In those days, probably that was accepted, but evolution of the thought and human addition of the seers and seekers and thinkers should not be minimized. Just an appeal.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought.
totally, no problem.
My 2 cents.
Yeah. No, totally. We get your point. Is there still static on my side?
No, actually, it's
No,
better.
there is not.
It's
There's
better.
not. So the way to understand this session is we are trying to get an idea of the Western philosophy. Think of it as Poropaksha, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
So we are trying to understand Western philosophy as it is presented by them. So the author is also a Norwegian person, right? Jostein Gaarder, and she is taking a look back at Western philosophy. So there is no tadaka of any Indian thought here. It's just purely okay. This is what they were thinking, and I think it's important for people, especially whether it is people living in the Western Hemisphere or whether it is people who are faced with interactions every day, to understand where they come from, basically, because
Got it.
our worldview may not be the same. Our being the Indian or the Eastern viewpoint may not be the same because fundamentally they could be different, basically.
Yes.
Right.
So no, you
That's
said
all.
it
So
very well.
yeah, neither is it comparative nor is it a contrast. This is purely okay. what do the Western people think of their own philosophy? Right? And the beautiful part about this is it is being presented to a young girl, right? So there is also, obviously, it's a woman presenting it to a girl, so there's a bit of a softness also in this, right? So
Got
that treatment is also there. There's a lot of like rounding of the corners. There are going to be a lot of euphemisms. Those kinds of things are also you'll see, but you know what is behind it. And they
Yes.
say X, right? But we are not going to dig into that because again, it's a Poropaksha as it is presented by this book,
Got
basically. Yeah.
Sir, one more comment about East versus West. Again, observation, n equals 1. See, the thing is, unfortunately, this, at least in Eastern philosophy, there is always, there is two sides to the coin. There is a Vyavaharika approach, meaning related and linked to this physical world, and a Paramardhika approach. Unfortunately, it seems like the Western philosophy falls way short of the Paramardhika tie-up or relationship, period. Even if there are some Western thinkers and thought leaders, it seems like they were motivated and some of those thoughts and concepts were borrowed from the East. At least it seems that way, reading up some of these so-called thinkers in the West. Having said that, unfortunately, industrial revolution followed by capitalistic mentality and capitalism's rise has consolidated the Western thoughts even more to Vyavaharika rather than Paramardhika. So it is an ongoing, continued, very different concept trying to analyze what West's definition of philosophy is. Ante, that's all I wanted to share.
Yeah, totally. No, so again, the idea is for us to understand the boundaries of that philosophy, right?
Yes.
So you are just pointing at one such boundary, right?
Yes.
Saying that it's they haven't explored it fully. Possibly,
Yeah.
we are not going to dispute that.
I
Another
have some
Dr.
words
Garu,
for it.
yeah. So another after we'll take this comment and then we'll come to you, Dachi. Good conversation.
Hmm.
So another Dr. Garu
Yes.
is watching the show, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Right?
See,
Any thoughts
finally,
about?
before we go, in response to lawyer Garu, Shravan Garu's thing about genitalia, we are all adults. So somewhere around sixth or eighth week of our lives in mother's womb, the male and female differentiate because of XX versus XY. So what happens is the unmodified growth leads to a female child. Whereas if you have XY, there are certain parts that regress and there are certain parts that grow. The chassis between both the babies genetically and physically is the same. If you remove the Y chromosome and leave it as XX, you see the full development. But the coin is flipped if you have the Y chromosome. So if you superimpose male and female genitalia mentally or physically, if you have a chance, you will see exactly it's not inverted. Certain parts become prominent in male, certain parts regress in a female. Thank you.
Wonderful. Uh, Sai Kiran Garu, Dr. Garu is asking, sir, any thoughts about the purpose of philosophy itself? Sir, I think in the initial sessions there was, and again here we have to really understand it's Western philosophy through the Western lens that we are trying to examine here, right? It is to ask basic questions like why are we here? Who created the universe? These kinds of questions that are more, the question itself is less important than the process of answering the question, right? The question is there, yes, but by exploring that question, it leads to a deeper understanding of who we are really, basically. That's what a philosopher would say. I don't know, Davaji, please go ahead.
Sir, excellent question,
So
sir. Dr. Sai Kiran Garu and Vishwa Garu, great answer. The first question, who are you, will lead to certain things, and then the definition of philosophy and whether it is needed or not, that particular question will be answered as you start the journey of asking yourself who truly you are. If we have time towards the end, I want to mention an experiment, a legendary experiment that was conducted by a Canadian neurosurgeon. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can talk about it later if interested, but please
Yeah,
carry on.
absolutely. We'll
Thank you.
get to that. I want you to talk about that also. Sir Davji, please go ahead first.
Yep.
Hmm. So let's take from the last question. What is the purpose of philosophy? It differs from, like, if we see about India. In India, philosophy was mainly answering three questions: Who am I? What is the soul? And where we all come from? And what is the reason? That was the main reason. In Western time, well, like Western philosophy, it is not the main focus. Like where we come from, it comes like many years, many centuries later. For them, the real question was what is real, what is good, what is the self, and what is the like what is the living well means, like how to live well, how to find happiness, how to deal with suffering. That was their goal. Okay. After that, later times in Western philosophy comes the God. So is God real or not? What is the time? Well, like what is time? And then comes after that justice system, democracy, and other things. In India, we focus on Atman, like what is Brahm, what are we, who am I, what is the soul. So its purpose differ from that. In my view, philosophy's purpose is to give you questions, to make you able, like made you like make you able to ask questions that before you were not able to. That is the purpose of philosophy from my side, what I believe. And
Wonderful.
before that, we were talking about the difference between philosophy, no? Indian or Western philosophy.
Western.
So,
Yeah.
but first, yeah. So first, we need to understand that both both philosophies approach are totally different. We cannot compare both of them. You know, like subject wise also, aspect wise also. We focus on moksha, like what is moksha, what is punarjanam, like rebirth or something. In Western philosophy, there is no thing called moksha. There is only truth, logic, and reason. Okay. Secondly, nature of self. We discuss about Atman, Brahma. What is Brahma? We are Brahma or not? Like Advait, Dvait, and all these philosophy. In there, they believe every person is different from other person. Self is individual. Their view, like their philosophy view is that. And way of thinking. We like Indian views like meditative, spiritual, intuitive. Western is analytic, scientific, and rational. I'm talking about old times. Now they are totally mixed up. Okay. So in Indian philosophy, you can find like analytical, scientific reasoning, and everything. And in philosophy, if you go to Western times, there is no meditative or spiritual thinking. There is only scientific, or like not scientific, rational. Like is it true or not? Where, like, we discussed Plato and Aristotle also. So Plato was like, this world is not real, the real world lives there. Then Aristotle comes like, no, this world is real, what we see is real. So he comes with this philosophy. After that, we will discuss more of them, and we will understand that Western philosophy is totally different from Indian philosophy. We can see some of the part in that, but it's not totally the same. You cannot
Right.
like difference. It's like you are comparing mango with potato. It's like
Right.
that.
Right.
So we should not do that.
Yeah. Davji, thank you, sir. So we are joined by another Dr. Garu, is Sai. Dr. Sai Kiran has joined the panel. Sir, please. Sir, don't worry about language. Telugu, if you are comfortable, go for Telugu. English also is fine. Okay. Basically, we have Davji, who is from Madhya Pradesh, so he'll have difficulty if you speak in Telugu. That's all.
Hmm.
సాయికరణ్ గారు
Yeah.
సాయికరణ్ గారు ఉన్నట్టా లేనట్టా మీరు మీ సౌండ్ రావట్లే మాకు
Yeah, we are having trouble with the. Maybe he needs to rejoin. But yeah, sir, while we are waiting, please mention that neuroscientist's name and the experiment. Please describe it, sir. I'm sure people will gain a lot of insight.
Vishwagaru, is that question for me?
Yeah, for you, sir, because he's having trouble with this audio.
Oh,
So
okay.
while we are waiting, probably you can describe that, and then we'll give reference also.
Okay. So one of the problems in 1900s, you can call it 20th century, that plagued medical field was uh, fits or epilepsy or seizures in kids. So there were no proper medications, and the only way to calm those seizures down in those days was to heavily sedate the kids. And every time, so when the kid is awake, anytime they can have a seizure, and that's not how you managed it. So we really needed certain medications that would abort the seizures, and the kid would be fine and then just get about with the kid's life. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
So one of the concepts that the neurosurgeons came up with was, okay, it seems like there are certain parts of the brain that are overactive and going out of control, throwing the kids into having seizures. So slowly the evolution, thought process, hypotheses, they have evolved, and that was the conclusion and the leading thought. So the neurosurgeons thought, maybe if we can map the brain, isolate those areas and burn them or remove them or control them in some way or other, we might be able to provide some relief for these sick children until something medication wise came through. So, one of the leading neurosurgeons, his name is Wilder Penfield. He is internationally known, and every medical student knows. Along with his medical peer, neurologist, anti-neurologist, and neurosurgeon, they go as a pair. They research and function, take care of the patients, right? So, his medical partner was Arthur Penfield. So these two guys, their sole task for 30 to 40 years in Toronto General Hospital was to map the brain and then find out what areas control what parts of the body. So it not only became important for seizure control, but also for removal of tumors. Some of them were cancerous, so that they can map the brain, minimize the damage to the brain when they are in the process of resecting the tumor, that is surgically removing it, etc. So it had many roles. So one time Dr. Penfield was asked to see a young lady, I'm just throwing a name, Susan, and she was having seizures, and then when they did x-rays and everything, there was a tumor in the brain. So they decided to remove the tumor, but at the same time stimulate the brain and then preserve as much as unaffected brain was they could. So by the way, brain has no pain receptors. What that means is if you touch the brain with a blade or something, brain cannot feel pain. So the way they did that was they gave local numbing medicine to the scalp and the bone. And after that, once you remove them safely, you could keep the patient awake and interactively talk, and then stimulate various parts of the brain, and then decide which ones you're not supposed to touch because you lose some function if you remove that. And then at the same time, get rid of the tumor with minimal functional loss. Are you guys following what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to dumb it down. Sorry.
Yes, I am relating. My dad was operated in his brain in 1999. He met with an accident.
Oh, yeah.
There was some water between the layers and all which got jammed and it was released. So that time the doctor was speaking to him continuously through the operation.
Yes.
So I think I can relate to.
Yes, sir. It has become a standard practice for decades. You're absolutely right, Shravan Garu. So, so what he said. So in the surgery, the skin was incised and the bone was removed, and the doctor was talking to Susan. Can you hear me? Yes, yes, Dr. Penfield. I can hear you. Okay, Susan. I'm going to do something to your brain, and tell me what is happening with you. So what he did was he stimulated the hand control area in the brain, and then Susan's hand started moving. So basically, she was folding, bending the elbow, right elbow. And then Dr. Penfield said, Susan, what's happening? Describe. She said, "Doctor, you did something to my brain, and I can sense that the result is my hand is bending at the elbow on the right side." He said, "Good. I'm going to repeat it again." He repeated it. She said the same thing. And then now he said, "Susan, I'm gonna continue to do that, but this time try to not let it happen, and we'll see if that is possible." So he stimulated that area again, and it started moving, and then she immediately resisted it. Resisted means not like fighting physically. She just did something internally in her brain. You can call it will or control or whatever. It didn't move. Dr. Penfield continued to stimulate that area, but it did not result in bending of the elbow. So he was completely startled and shocked. Okay, the surgery went very well. He removed the tumor, minimizing the damage, collateral, and then closed it, removed the gloves, and then went back to his desk. In those days, they documented everything in a diary, lab book ankondi. I mean, you can think of it as a lab book. And then he came to a startling conclusion. He didn't know how to explain what he saw or witnessed that day. He came to a stunning conclusion and wrote down 2 lines. He said, "I know where the control room is, but I cannot but I cannot find the captain of the ship. I know where the control room of the ship is, but I don't know, nor can I find the captain of the ship." What he's essentially trying to say is the thought in us arises outside the body. The body is only an instrument to carry the commands, will, whatever you want to say. The origin of the thought is not in the brain nor in this human body. It is in a physical dimension that is totally separate. And now, with this knowledge, think amongst yourselves and then ask who you really are. There is always a quote that we hear all the time. Every time when somebody asked a question to Bhagavan Ramana, apparently he used to say, "Who's asking? Who is asking this question?" So whenever a person asked him, he used to look at that person and say, "Who's asking?" I mean, as silly and esoteric these things may sound, it is a profound awakening. Dr. Penfield was an atheist. After this, he has become deeply religious, apparently. And then after his early retirement, he just became a true Christian, and then whatever service he did. So I'll stop here, and happy to take any thoughts or questions if I can answer. I myself don't
Perfect.
know. I'm trying to get around this profoundness. Thank you all.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jignesh Garu. Sir, Sai Kiran Garu, please talk.
సార్ వినపడుతుందా అండి?
Yeah.
ఎస్ సార్. సో ఐ విల్ జస్ట్ కంటిన్యూ ఆన్ జిజ్ఞాసు గారు's point, sir.
Yeah, please.
So is my voice clear, sir? Clear enough?
Sir, crystal clear.
Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Penfield, he started as a materialist, sir. So basically, what is a materialist? To believe that all that can be seen, that only exists. And eventually, with these thought experiments, he became a dualist, where there is matter, of course, what we can observe, and then there is something beyond the matter called as spirit. This we can see in Descartes' dualism also. I think Descartes was a person who also had similar philosophy. But still, there's an issue with that, sir. How do both of these interact? If spirit is ultimately separate from matter, how are both of them interacting? Any thoughts on this, sir?
Sai Kiran Garu, can you repeat the question one more time, sir?
Yes, sir. So basically, Dr. Penfield started as a materialist, sir. So only material things exist and nothing else can exist. And whatever the process of the brain or whatever consciousness we are getting, that is a epiphenomena of the brain. But as after he conducted these experiments, he came to a conclusion that there was something beyond the brain also. So this is called as dualism, where there's one spirit and there's also matter, which spirit is non-material. So similar philosophy we have from Descartes also, dualism. So now in this one we have a question here. How do both of them interact? How does the spirit interact with the matter? Because ultimately whatever changes or actions we're having it in matter only, not in the spirit. So how is the spirit able to control the matter? This is the question.
Sir, nobody knows that answer. So basically, for that, see, I'm a novice, honestly. I don't know 99% of what is discussed by Vishwa Garu, Chakradhar Garu, Lawyer Garu, SK Garu. One of the things is the same curiosity makes me tune in every now and then whenever I have some time and I find some time. But I know a few things, just started reading and understanding and knowing these things. I'm a very novice. But what I can tell from the little I know, there is a Prakriti and a Purusha. Prakriti is unmanifest. Sorry, Purusha, unmanifest. So if you really try to compare it with some of the Western scientific thought, Vishwagaru, Shravan Garu, please correct me if I'm digressing. The unmanifest is the potential energy that is nirguna nirvikara, whatever, or the Parabrahma or Brahman or Narayana form. And then what is manifest is only 20% or less, because this is based on, the dark matter scientists that they describe. Whatever manifest universe is only 10 to 20% of what the potential it has. Some of the other thinkers also suggested that when Purusha manifests Prakriti apparently, or even Purusha, had a curious question: what is my real form? And for that, several levels of evolution of nervous systems as creatures in the physical world apparently were created as part of this grand creation. And the crowning jewel of that nervous system evolution is human being. So that, we are endowed with five senses to appreciate and visualize or sense or smell or feel this physical world. At the end of the day, somehow these nervous systems are linked to, whether you call it spirit or whether you call it Atma, whatever. Again, I don't know much about these things, but it makes a lot of sense that the real collective thought is not in this physical dimension alone. Probably it transgresses transdimensionally. Even the thought is mind blowing, So Vishwagaru probably can articulate it better because he's much more read with respect to the matrix and all that current scientific thinking. There are so many parallel worlds. When they say parallel worlds, it's probably multiple dimensions. At least in our scriptures, 64 dimensions were mentioned. That's why, there is a sage that appears in Krita Yugam, Treta Yugam, Dwapar Yugam. Every yuga, there are the same Saptarishis that come and go. Probably time is bendable. It doesn't make any sense in a different dimension. Who knows? It is so complicated and mind-boggling. The one observation I want to close with is, see, all these, IP address or web address. See, when a Brahmin sits every day for Anushtana to do Gayatri, there is something called Sankalpa. Sankalpa means you're identifying yourself and announcing it to whoever the higher spirit is that, hey, this is me in this physical world, and I'm thinking about you, and I'm trying to I'm trying to pay my obeisance to whoever the higher up is, in an attempt to understand that this is not permanent, and there is something else that is higher up that I want to be associated with and realize and recognize and be part of. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jignesh Garu, for that. So let me quickly try to attempt your question, Sakrin Garu. Um, one way of thinking about this interaction that you asked about, right? See, I don't know what spirit is in Western philosophy. Okay. When you come to the Indian darshanas, the way you try to, so what you are essentially asking is, the instrument is now trying to figure out how it interacts with the master who is controlling it. So the instrument is limited by its own capabilities to project. That is very important to remember. So with that, there is an experience in your own life every day actually that can give you an insight into this, which is the states that you go through when you sleep and you wake up, right? In a very, that is the microcosm, or that is the sample of how the universe has come into manifest, right? So this is again the Advaita concept, So the 4-state model. So what you are essentially asking is, what happens, what is the interaction between the Sushupti and the 4th state? Because Sushupti is manifestation of emptiness. Nevertheless, it is still a manifestation. The best way to describe in words what that 4th state is witness consciousness. Now, if you want to in detail find out the states between the witness consciousness and the manifestation of the emptiness, there is one method, right? But they haven't done much either, in terms of they have not come up with anything earth shaking. That is a darshana number 2, yoga darshana, basically, right? Maybe a yogi can describe in a lot of detail what happens in the samadhi state, right? But a lot of times the articulation is very minimal, because all they can say is there's nothing here, because everything has sort of subsided, basically, right? And beyond that, for the philosopher, the manifestation of the rest of the material things and all that is just of academic interest, nothing more, basically, because once it is manifest, whether it is emptiness or non-emptiness, it's the same thing, it is manifest. So to answer your question simply, witness consciousness. And the other thing is, you only are aware of it once it comes into manifestation. So how the manifestation happens is something, I mean, there are some descriptions of it, but very, there's not much. I mean, you get into this whole Prakriti Purusha and Mola Prakriti and then Mola Purusha, it divides, right? I have never been satisfied with those explanations. Yeah. I have never been
Me too.
satisfied with those explanations. You too. What do we do, Dawji?
Yeah,
Let's
but
break our heads. Let's break our heads.
no. I want to tell my guru's word. What my guru used to told me. I want to tell that. So the servant and the master one. So he used to say that when the servant forget the master, there is confusion. When the servant obeys the master, there is wisdom. And when the master identifies with the servant, there is suffering. So he used to describe like that.
Yeah,
And then how they interact is, so he used to say vague things. Okay, so that's why I didn't subscribe to that, but it was very fascinating. He was like, mind is like a river and Atma is the sky. I
yeah,
said, okay, how? So the sky reflects in the river, but they are not same. They are not one. Okay. So when
yeah,
the river is still, when the person or what like the mind is in peace or in focus, you can see the sky clearly. When the river is disturbed, the sky looks broken, but it's not. The sky is always there. So the
correct.
Atma is always there. But I want to
So,
clarify that I don't subscribe to that
so Jignasa Garu, you
view.
have to connect your mic and uh, webcam, but then remove. Yeah, now I can add you.
Briefly, my apology.
No worries,
Thank
no
you,
worries. It's
sir.
all good. It's
So
all good.
basically, one comment, sir, about that. I mean, this is such an intellectual discussion. I'm very short of words, honestly. But
There's
when
nothing to it. Mhm.
Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Garu used to say, I believe, or at least from his teachings, and also Swami Vivekananda, you know, you can use any kind of a physical term or some kind of an analogy in the present physical world, because as humans we are limited and only our capabilities are very, very less, because we are all ruled by what we perceive and what we understand. But at the end of the day, one of the things that was said was, first of all, you have to surrender. For that, you need to have faith. Faith, surrender, constant manana, thinking about that, will lead to an experiential whatever. And once you have the experience, none of this makes any sense. It is far, far superior, almost like what Shankaracharya defined as Brahmananda. That is when all of this word salad becomes useless, sir. So we can read no matter what, no matter how much, but it doesn't suffice for uh, uh, what the reality is, probably. So
Yeah.
Vishwagaru said it very well. It is. What was he trying to say? I lost
Yeah.
the main word he
Basically,
was
yeah.
saying.
No worries, sir. I'll
This
bring it
this
back.
this witness.
Yeah.
What you said. This witness concept is probably the first step in trying to have that experience. That's what I feel.
Right. So we're going back to Dr. Garu, the other Dr. Garu. Sir, did you get even a part of your question addressed, let alone answered?
And I want to
Yes, sir.
add, I think we gave the answer of that question also. What is the purpose of philosophy in this statement?
Hmm.
This
That's
is
why I
this
took
is
it
the
there.
purpose of philosophy.
Right.
Yeah, this is the purpose of philosophy.
Right. Sorry, Saikiran Garu, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. As Jignasu Garu was saying, sir, you are all amateurs. Then if that is the case, I am a much pilla bacha amateur, sir.
No,
So
that is not the point. You asked a very interesting question. How does the spirit interact with the physical? Right.
Sir, it is
yeah.
the ultimate and probably it is the only question that we are all trying to strive toward.
Correct. So I think the question remains, but you can make progress towards unpacking it. And the beauty
Yes,
of the Indian, in this, I'll bring the Indian concept, right? Which is you don't have to look outside your own experience to understand this, to understand the answer to this question. That's what at least Advaita says, right? In its barest form, the core form of Advaita is observe your own experiences, basically, you know. And
yes,
you
yes,
have
sir.
the example of how the universe is created by how your own processes happen every day, you know. That's the
Vishwagaru. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
sorry.
Hmm.
After you're done. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. So that is the beginning, sir. Um, Lawyer Garu. Sorry, I'm sorry. The other Dr. Garu, Sai Kiran Garu. Now the thing is, um, some people are not satisfied by that. Let me put it that way. So the thing is this: you keep exploring until you are satisfied, or you keep getting your own answers from these questions that you have. Right? Nobody is saying Advaita is the greatest. Nobody
Hmm.
is saying Dvaita is this, that is this is that, this is this. No, don't believe anything that
Hmm.
anybody says. Okay, you are asking the question, you go for the answer. That's it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Being the devil's advocate, I would say the third view. There is another view that do not. There is no need to view, like find answers. There is no need. This is the physical form, and this is the truth. Like this is the truth. Like Charvak, you know.
go for it,
No
man.
need to find any answer. There is no answer. Enjoy the life.
Yeah, eat the box of
So there is,
rasgullas and be happy. Who is saying no?
yeah.
Yeah,
Enjoy this also. En- Enjoy the whatever the mind say. Enjoy.
correct.
No need to find answers also.
Right. So Alma Betula Garu is putting a lot of statements. We are happy. Please continue, sir.
Sir, one quick comment about, we were chatting about Sai Kiran Garu's question. In the Sankalpa, uh, basically, when you identify, it almost feels like, there is a wireless internet. And then you are trying to give your IP address to connect through the internet to whatever that flow of thought or power or energy is. You know, there is so many, at least on a superficial level, similarities to the so-called evolution in neural network, artificial intelligence, etc., and how probably the bigger universal plan works and the concept of matrix, etc. So that's how it feels, at least. And with respect to what Vishwagaru was saying about the witness concept, Bhagavan Ramana, he suffered from probably one of the most aggressive tumors. Basically, he had a soft tissue or a bone sarcoma, I believe, which used to ulcerate, bleed, become necrotic, like part of the tissue is dying while he is awake. If it were to be an ordinary person, he would be so much in pain that he would be rendered basically functionless. But he used to walk, get about, and everybody used to be surprised. Baba, are you not hurting or are you not in pain? Apparently, he always used to say, that's for this body, it's not for me. I mean, it may sound very simple or silly or esoteric, but these things are so profound. That is coming from that witness concept from somebody who has already realized what all of these things are and what human body and what the so-called atma darshana. So it is amazing. I mean, it is so complicated, it's probably beyond human imagination, this small brain of ours.
Yeah. Thank you, Jignesh Garu. I think Davji wanted, sir, Saikran Garu, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the answer, sir. As we are going through this Sophie's world and we're also doing Bhagavad Gita also, we shall see if I are more refined answers for this question.
We are giving you both. We are giving you stereophonic effect, with the Western and the Eastern.
Sir, do you have time right now?
Yeah, time. There is time, sir. But 1 second. Davji, see, okay, I'll introduce formally Davji to everybody. He is in his early 20s, very young man, but he is studying to be a teacher. Okay, he's trying to do his B.Ed. He wants to teach kids. He lives in Madhya Pradesh, and he's one of our favorite guests because very open-minded. And I love the way he thinks, because kids who will be exposed to his kind of teachings are the next generation that we need, basically. Right. So he wanted to quickly present some kind of answer to that question, right? What is the purpose of philosophy, right? Davji, please go ahead. And then after that, we'll come to you, sir. Saikran Garu. We have time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishwa. So the purpose of philosophy, I quickly made a table. Okay, so area of life and then the purpose of life, purpose of philosophy. So first was area of life, like knowledge. So purpose of philosophy in that is understanding truth, reality, and the universe. What is the universe? How does it work? What is truth? What is reality? What is not real? And then second area is ethics. So ethics, in ethics we will read about what is right, what is wrong, what is moral life, what is not moral, and changing the moral life after time to time. Okay, and then comes the society part in philosophy. So create laws, governance, fairness. We see in society that we say hang till that, what we say in English, that sentence, that sentence. So it is right or not. It's not just a like what we say. What we say. I forget the word. Law. It's just not law to decide is it right or not. It's philosophical discussion that taking a man's life is right or not after he done very horrific things or not. But is it right or not? It's a philosophical subject. Okay, then comes the self part. Area of life is self. So understanding the mind, understanding the soul, ego, liberation, individualism. These are the purpose of philosophy in that. And then comes the thinking skill. Questioning, analyzing, and breaking false belief is what purpose of philosophy in thinking skill. These skills are the main part of philosophy. If you are able to do that, then philosophical purpose is served. And then last comment is philosophy is not just a subject, in my view. It is like it's like the fire that burns in heart. So you can ask the like you can become the worthy of asking questions. That is my view. That it's not just about answers. It's about like how you are able to ask questions. So these are my view on purpose of philosophy. So sorry for my English, and this was my answer.
No, no, no. Thank you very much, Raji. We appreciate your insights as always. In fact, we picked up this book based on his recommendation, by the way. So credit where it is due. Sir, Sai Kiran garu, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I thanks for the answer, Dawji. I have a very maybe you might call it absurd, sir. I have a question actually. So you just read it between the lines. I don't know what YouTube will flag it as. So basically, I'm 26 right now. From now on, if we look forward also, most of the life will be full of toil. You need to work hard for the small moments of pleasure that we may get at the end of the day, but majority of it is toil. So there are certain painless medication, what you want to call it. What is immoral about doing something wrong, whatever you call it is wrong? Why is life a value? Any answer to this question, sir?
What was the last part? So, what is immoral? So, let's say, I mean, you are probably referring to some addictions, right? Which is okay, fine. So, you said what is immoral about taking those pain, sort of daily pain things that will
No,
help
no,
you to
no,
get through
sir.
this style.
That's not the only. That's not the question actually. But you might feel it absurd also. But there are certain philosophers who have tried to answer this question. So because most of the life is full of hard work and toil,
Mm.
why live it? That's the question.
Oh, why even
If,
go through it,
yeah, I mean,
basically?
if there are painless options of any
Mm.
kind, why are they wrong? Why are they immoral? Because if we see it from a risk to benefit to reward to risk ratio, it's not worth it at the end of the day. So why is it a value, and why doing something else is immoral?
Right. So, you're talking about like potentially taking your own life.
Yeah, I don't know how YouTube will flag it, so I have to put it in between lines.
Right, I understand. No worries. It's an open forum, sir. Don't worry about it. Right, nobody is going to feel offended. Right. So why live the life and go through the toil as opposed to just one day popping? Right. Just
Yeah,
just like you open the Coke can and then they take the fizz off. Right. Okay.
Hmm. In Plato's view, I would answer in Plato's word. Immoral acts are acts that disrupt the soul's harmony.
Mm.
yeah, but I don't care about the harmony when I'm not
Yeah.
able.
Yeah. So let me try to answer it from the Indian context. Right. Uh, I mean, you can take Daoji's.
అంటే
Let's.
క్వశ్చన్ మనం చనిపోవడం గురించా?
I mean, why lead the life if it is full of toil? It's a very simple question, actually.
కరెక్ట్. సో దీనిలోనే నాకు ఇంకో క్వశ్చన్, అంటే మనల్ని మనం కిల్ చేసుకోవడం ఇమ్మోరల్ అని ఏంటి అని, లైక్ హూ
Yeah,
సెట్ దట్ రూల్ అనేది కూడా చెప్పేసేయండి.
right. So why is it immoral to take your own life? That is, if that is one of the options, right? That's another question that is part of it. So
Sir,
I
just
can,
a couple of lines, Vishwa Garu, SK Garu, and Sai Kiran Garu.
yeah,
One of Vivekananda's quotes: "Sweet are these adversities, but for them life is not worth living."
yeah,
Number
but
two,
yeah,
number two, I mean, the entire Bhagavad Gita is about why there should be no inaction. You don't have the option for inaction. So your dharma is to just fulfill the task. And I mean, it's on a global, superficial 40,000 foot view. But Vishwagaru, please continue.
yeah, no, no, no problem, sir. Thanks for those statements. They are all relevant because look, everybody has their life experiences, and here everybody is fairly experienced, right? You know, everybody is past 20 at least. So you have seen some part of life. Now the question is very simple. you know do you want to subscribe to a particular viewpoint? This is the first question. Okay, because every viewpoint, every philosophy or viewpoint or whatever sets out some objective out there. All right. So the in the Indian context, your ultimate goal is to get this realization, moksha, right? What do they call it? Kaivalya, right? Videha Kaivalya, or whatever you want to call it, or there are terms for it, where you realize this Brahman consciousness while you are still possessing this body, basically. If that is your ultimate objective, then the suffering or the toil that you are referring to is just a side effect, basically. While you are pursuing these questions and experiences, there are certain other worldly things that you have to do, right? If you are a sannyasi, for example, you have to take care of your own body. For some people, even that is painful because they don't want to distract from this question. If you get into the grihastha and from the brahmacharya, you can directly jump into sannyasa. Or if from the brahmacharya, you can go into grihastha, then you go into vanaprastha, then you go into sannyasa, basically, right? So the sannyasi also leads a torturous life because for them, there is only one question that they are pursuing. It may not get ever answered. For the grihastha, you are concerned with the physical world. The dharma, artha and kama are they become important as you get into it. If you don't get it, your wife will make sure that you will get the answers there, basically, right? I want this, I want this, I want this. Just SHUT, UP, and then do it, right? So net is, are you fulfilling the objective that you have been pointed to after gaining certain maturity, right? The alternative is, if you don't subscribe to that viewpoint, there is always the alternative, right? So who says it is immoral to, end your life? Before you do that, before you take that step, the real question is, what is the viewpoint that says life is full of toil? So be very hard on that conclusion that you have already drawn, basically, right? Some people might say life is full of toil. Like, for example, if you take up the Buddhist philosophical angle, they say that samsara is dukkha, basically, right? Because life is sorrow, right? And how do you escape the sorrow? By liberation, right? But who says life is sorrow, right? Which comes back to the question again, sorrow to whom, right? So who are you again becomes the central question. Is it the witness that is um, sorrowful, or is the witness seeing some other entity being in sorrow, basically, right? The moment you are able to isolate, okay, who is feeling this sorrow, basically, then your question might be answered, right? If you are purely the witness, then does it matter whether the movie that is being played is a happy movie or a sad movie? You are just the screen, basically. The screen has nothing to do with the movie. So given that this life of toil, etc., is just, you are just witnessing it. That's all. It's just that it's a close. It's like the audience is seeing the movie from a distance. The screen is actually playing the movie on itself, basically. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter whether there is a person winning lottery in the movie or somebody getting killed in the movie, right? The screen is independent of that. It's just that it's being played on the screen. That's why the screen might get confused, saying I am part of the movie, basically.
Vishwagaru, excellent explanation of limitations of Buddhism.
No, that's it. Buddhism is the sorrow, that and all that. That's okay. But the
Yeah.
screen witness and all that is our own.
No,
It is
that's
part of the
brilliant.
Saddarsanas.
Absolutely. That's where Buddhism stops. It cannot go any further because for them zero is shunya, and absolutely sorrow will be perceived, and so everything looks like suffering. Whereas for us, Shaddarsana and in Sanatana, zero is purna. So there is absolutely no contest between the outlook of someone who looks at zero and says this is shunya and this is all sorrow, versus somebody who says that is completion, that is purna. You know?
Yeah. So I mean, finishing on that point, in Buddhism there is no screen. In the Sanatana concept, there is only the screen actually, right? The moment you come to that, okay, there is a screen and there is a movie. At some point in time, you will take the leap that there is only the screen, right? That is the only reality. Everything else is now we have to use our terms, right? Everything else is mithya, basically. That includes the sorrow and the toil.
But Vishwa,
Ah,
I think your approach, I might be wrong, okay, but your approach is wrong
hmm,
in the answering the immoral part, because moral comes from the society, from the surrounding. Personal being has no moral. Like if you are there, like if you are born, okay, the boy has no moral value. Like maybe he knows how to do some things, but he has no moral. Like if there is fire, he it has no moral that I am going inside. He has no knowledge about it. Okay, so it is not about moral or not like immoral in the self thing. Immoral thing comes when you discuss it in a surrounding perspective.
correct.
Taking your life or taking something is immoral because it has value. So taking your own life is immoral because it has value, like
Okay,
personal duties, like feelings to others, others feeling to yourself. Like you, there are attached feeling of some other people also to you. There are some duties that you need to fulfill. So you take by taking your own life, you are not fulfilling these duties. You are making like feel bad about it. Okay, so that's why it is immoral. If you go only by your personal view, then there is no thing as immoral or moral. If you want to take your life, you can take, but if you go about the whole view, like society view, then it's immoral or moral.
got it.
Sorry,
That
sir.
was I think.
Sorry.
What if the person
Partially
is an
disagree.
orphan?
Sorry, Garu, please go ahead.
No, I mean, what if the person has no family, no responsibilities, not married, uh, just thought he's done. He's not leaving any tasks of his incomplete.
Hmm.
Then is it okay?
So the person can think that that I can take my life now because I have no duty or no responsibility. That's why I'm saying in personal view there is nothing immoral or moral. It only the immoral and moral parts comes when other is involved, other person, other thing, other values involved, then comes the moral or immoral part. If I am the only subject, then there is no moral or immoral thing. Taking somebody life is immoral because I am taking somebody else thing. Okay, taking my life is only like immoral because I am taking something that can be useful for the society, not now, maybe after 10 years, after 20 years. That's why. So if you are thinking that you done all your responsibility, you are free, you have no attachment to anything, then for you it is totally moral, but for society it is immoral. The other people will always say that it is immoral. That's why I'm saying for personal view, there is nothing called immoral or moral. It's
But
only a subjective matter.
correct. But in the same spectrum of these that we have, darshanas, I think Charvaka is more about I am here to just enjoy everything that is there, kind of, right?
Yes,
Uh, Correct
yes,
me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So
yes.
when everything here is just for my enjoyment, there is nothing that
Hmm.
I have to contribute to, right? It's like everything
Hmm.
is for me. So I am telling I am a Hindu. I mean, in the
Hmm.
Sanatana framework, in one of the
Hmm.
darshanas. and
Hmm.
it's all I in there, right? So
No,
I decided that
no,
I
no, no. In
enjoyed
Sanatan Dharma, there is duties. You have fundamental duties. You have red.
not
You
in
know.
Charvaka, right? When I'm in the other end of the spectrum, now see who is doing it, what are we observing. This all comes when I reach the other end of the spectrum, which is Advaitam. But I'm saying I'm still
Hmm.
I'm in this Charvaka level, and I don't
Hmm.
even want to explore the other phases of other darshanas.
Yes.
I am telling myself that I enjoyed enough,
Hmm.
because that's what Charvaka says. Everything is there for your joy or for you to
Yes.
consume. So
Yes.
I decided that I enjoyed enough, I consumed enough, and
Hmm.
I decided I want to end my life, because I don't have any
Okay.
responsibilities. Also, let's say I'm an orphan, I'm not married, I'm done, I'm in my late 30s, let's say. So I thought I'm
Hmm.
good. So how is morality even in this picture?
Okay. So, do you think Charvak view was moral
No, but I'm
in
saying
other
it's
things?
part of Shaddar Sanas itself, right? I don't know what is
So
Charvaka
that
philosophy
so
totally,
Char,
but
because
Dawood,
there is very little knowledge about Charvak darshan firstly, and then the view that you can end your life. It's but in Charvak darshan they are lazy. Okay, in simple word, they are lazy. So they are lazy to take their own life also. Okay, if you are a Charvak person, you will not go through that pain of ending your life. You will find the best route. You wanted to find the best route to end your life, but even that you need to do some work. So they will say, forget it, my life will end itself whenever the times comes. In Charvak darshan, that would be the end. Okay.
No, no, yeah. So no, anyway, at some point we'll have to, sir. Uh, very good discussion. Maybe
Yeah,
this question is we can postpone it to another session as well. But
Vishwagaru, quick interjection, sir.
yes, yes, please go ahead, sir.
So no. I think it is so easy to fall prey to some of these translated words into English or West. Unfortunately, in Sanskrit, there are certain non-translatables. Instead of premising and contextualizing these questions under moral or immoral, we should probably discuss them as dharmic or adharmic, because at least that's what our
Yeah.
philosophy says.
So I won't even bring that into the equation,
Yeah.
Sai Garu. All I am going to say is this, right? I am not going to answer the morality question, right? Because you take that path, there is no answer. Nobody can answer this morality question. Is something moral, immoral, etc. The real question
Vishwa,
is, sir.
Vishwa,
Yeah. Uh,
Vishwa. Welcome to philosophy.
yeah. No. We are already there. So that's why I didn't use the word moral at all in my answer. The first time you
Yeah,
should pay
no, I
attention.
agree. I think moral and immoral versus dharmic or adharmic is a little bit more relatable to philosophic discussions. And
Right.
in response to Sai Kiran Garu, I just wanted to say a couple of things.
Yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
We are all overachievers. Come on, let's not ignore that. Everybody on this panel, listening, watching, participating, commenting, we are all overachievers. Number one. Number two, I think a good start would be to give up fear of failure. That is where I think we all need to focus on. All of us went through that phase. The most important thing is, as we are asking ourselves these questions and we are continuing the journey of life, which is so rich and so many positives, after a while, once you start having a little bit of gray hair and you're on this path of so called this life, uh, positive and negative definition changes, sir. At least, I mean, in my experience, there is nothing like positive or negative. It's all experiential. You are going through the journey of life. There is some upticks and downticks again. You are not even supposed to say that. It becomes an experience. Whether you want to call it positive or negative, failure or success is up to you. In fact, the grades of those positive, negative, and then success or failure, they completely blur out. at the end of the day, ultimately, it is a journey and it becomes an experience, honestly. If you start looking at it that way, some of these hard lines and differences slowly disappear.
Yeah. So yeah, so instead of looking at it from a point of view of morality, the idea, Sagan Garu, is to at this point of time, what point of view is it that you want to sort of explore? Think about it that way, right? Pick one just for the sake of pure exploration and nothing more, and then slowly you might start understanding. And if you take the line that Daoji said, you're already a trained doctor. So, with all due respect, you're going to be a lot more useful to the society than a lot of other people. So,
I get
you should not be entertaining these kinds of thoughts, right? The society needs you a lot more than you need yourself almost at this point in time.
Sir, am I audible? Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, sir, please go ahead.
No, sir. I was just asking because I was thinking about philosophy, but again, we should not have limitations to our questions.
No, not at all. Not
I
at
mean,
all. No, none. I would never ever stop you from asking any question. Yeah.
yeah, actually, it was very nice answer, sir, about what the difference between Sanatana Dharma and Buddhism is and everything.
Right.
And Taoji and Jignasu Garu gave nice answers about morality. Maybe in the next discussions, we need to have two more questions. I got, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, sir.
yeah, I will just put them right now. Maybe we can
Yeah.
all
Please,
think
please
about
go
it.
ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So if we are identifying with the screen as a non-doer or of anything, and we are the screen, then won't that lead to passivity? Why should I act? I'm just a screen. I'm not the one doing anything, anyways. So why should I? Isn't that a passive life that we ultimately lead? That's one question.
Hmm.
And of course, why do you need morals? Maybe that question. Did we discuss that before? Why do we need morals at all?
No, we have not discussed that, but we'll definitely take it up in the next few sessions. These are two good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we are all underachievers, sir, because we are still trying to figure out all these things. So maybe all the others figured that they're having
Right,
their happy lives.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah, but these are great questions to think about during the week before our next session.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. With that, I think it's 2 hours, usually much longer than our typical session in this particular format. But we appreciate Dr. Garu, both doctors, Daoji. I mean, we got the cross section of society here, right? We got lawyer Garu, we got Sikshardhan Garu, we got SK Garu. Everybody asking great questions, great discussion. We appreciate it, which is what I was
Sir,
hoping for when we opened up the philosophy. Yes, sir.
sir, just one uh, s- uh, assertion, sir. I
Yeah.
agree with all the things that Jignasu Garu, uh, Daoji, and you have said until now, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, I will explain it later why I had to say it in coming sessions, sir.
Absolutely. We'll be more than happy to have your point of view on that. Right. And thanks, SK Garu, for reading. We appreciate it. And thanks, Lawyer Garu, for showing us all these things and for the stream yet. With that, we'll close. Have a wonderful week. And anybody who is watching it later, please like and subscribe the channel. Thank you.
Great.